C. Wilson is a speaker, coach, and best-selling author of the book Iron Will, How to Heal Your Invisible Scars, Unlock Confidence, and Achieve the Freedom You've Always Wanted. After a 35-year career as a corporate executive, Wendy discovered that her greatest strength came not from corporate achievements, but from the resilience she built surviving childhood trauma, an abusive marriage, and workplace discrimination. Now she uses her story to help others break free from silence, rebuild their confidence, and create lives aligned with both purpose and self-worth. Welcome to the Hopenning. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Hopenning. This is the place where hope is happening. And I am so blessed to have Wendy C. Wilson here with me today. Thank you, Wendy, for coming.
Thank you, Fran, for having me. I'm honored to be here.
And behind you, you do have your best-selling book, Iron Will, and it came out just recently, didn't it?
It came out almost a year ago now. Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
But you came from a very successful career. You were born in Asia. You have been in the United States for many, many years, and you've had a very successful 35-year career in the corporate world.
Yeah.
Why did you feel it necessary to write the book Iron Will?
Okay. So this is an interesting story. So like I said, I have been a successful corporate executive for 35 years. And we are empty. My husband and I are empty nesters now. Our kids are grown. They grew up in Dallas, Texas. We lived there for 22 years. And then we had an opportunity. My husband's job relocated us to Chicago for 15 years. So now, after 15 years, he's got another opportunity for us to move now to Madison, Wisconsin. And so we came to Madison and kind of look around, and we really like the vibe. It's a very small town. I shouldn't say small town. It's much, much smaller than Chicago and Dallas, that what we are used to. So we decided that might be a really good, and all the outdoor activities. People are just wonderful. So we said, yeah, maybe I'll just give up my job there. Or it's only 2.5, 3 hours drive from Madison to Chicago. So I said, let me see what's going on. And at that time I was working for a relatively mid-sized technology company. And when they hired me, they couldn't pay what I wanted. They couldn't pay me, so they gave me equity in the company. So, but my arrangement was that I cannot sell my equity until a larger company buy us. So everything happened for a reason, right? It happened for you. So just as we were deciding, let's move, KKR, a very large investment firm, bought this company I was with. So that's my opportunity. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to sell my equity, cash in my equity, and retire from corporate. So that was the decision. And make a long story short, we moved. I ended my contract. I did my employment, and then I moved to Madison, Wisconsin. And I didn't even unpack all my boxes, and they called me. They said, Wendy, we need you to come back and work for us. We cannot do this. We're way, way behind. I said, this is crazy. It's only been 2 weeks. I said, no, I'm really not interested. Because my mind is already pivot, right? I'm already pivoted. And so they said, we really need, how about just consult with us? Just consult. And they say the magic word, they said, you can name your terms. I said, oh, okay, let me think about it. So I went back to them. I said, because I was global, I was in charge of global teams all over the world. I said, I have zero travel. I don't even drive the 2 hours, 3 hours to Chicago. I have zero travel. I want to work 3 days a week, and I want this much. And they said, okay. That was the easiest negotiation. But this little 3-month arrangement became 6 months, became 12 months, all the way to 9 months to 12 months. So at the last 3 months, before it became 12 months, I told them, I said, I'm not doing this. After this last renewal, you cannot call me for 6 months because I actually trained a guy in London to do my job. They just wouldn't allow him to, or didn't trust him enough to pick up the phone and call him. So that was the arrangement. And that actually, it all worked out very good for me because it allows me to slow down and kind of, because I go at 120 miles an hour, 7 days a week, and at weekends, I catch up on emails. So it allows me to slow down, and then it allows me to think, what do I want to do with the next phase of my life? And they said, well, if you statistically really, I read that if a person goes at this fast pace for a very long time and they drastically slow down, they die within 2 years. Now, look at me. I can't retire. I can't die in 2 years. I have a lot more to give. So I said, okay, I'm going to, like everything else, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to figure it out. So I said, and they also say that if you want, in retirement, you should do something you enjoy so that it wouldn't be seem like work. So I sat down and said, okay, what do I like to do? I came up with, I couldn't think of anything. I said, oh, don't worry. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write it out. And I want to fix this. I know. And then I'm going to go from here. So next morning I woke up, I got out my journal and started nothing. Next day, blank page. Then I got kind of sad. I said, what is wrong, Wendy? Now, if you, friend, ask me, Wendy, what do you do? I can rattle in 5 minutes what I do at work. My identity was so tied with my work that I've lost who I am. It's always about the kids, what they want to eat, where they want to go, what they want to do, and the husband, right? And then my job, of course. So I was really sad. And I thought, well, you know what? In that highly emotional state, I started to journal because I love to write. So I started to just write my thoughts. Whatever comes, I'm doing data dump. I said, don't stop yourself. Don't worry about correct spelling in English and all that. I just wrote. And the more I write, the more things starts to flow. My past, my childhood trauma. I was married for 7.5 years to an abusive, physically abused man. All of that came out. And when I show it to my current husband, he said, Wendy, you need to turn this into a book. And that was when the first seed was planted in my mind about writing a book. And then I looked at it, I said, hey, this is pretty good. I love, love, love to write. So why don't I just write a book? And then a friend of mine, I'm part of a high performance mastermind group. It's called Ultra. And so I met a lady who helps self-publishing authors publish their book because they know all the ins and outs of all of that. And so I engaged her, and I was very interested in her because her tagline was that she doesn't use the book to make money. She used the book to propel her to spread her message to her audience. And that's exactly what I wanted. From this journaling and kind of self-reflection and just thinking through stuff, it just opened my mind to like a light bulb came on and I said, oh my goodness, I know exactly what my purpose is in life now. Maybe a little late. I'm in the last quarter of my of my life, but I'm so clear on my purpose. And friend, my purpose is to help the person who was me 30 years ago. I was struggling as an individual, as a woman in a high-level corporate executive that is struggling, and I was so afraid to say anything because it's in my mind. It's your mind is telling you all these things that if I tell people my real story, they will think I'm weak. you know. So I kept this a secret. So that's a long way of answering your question.
You grew up in Asia, in an Asian country
Mhm.
where the traditions, the culture, the gender identity, and all of
Mhm.
that 50 or more years ago. Um, and it might even be this way today. I'm not really sure about it, but it is so counter to what women today that are growing up would see. And so, can you tell us about your childhood? You grew up in a family similar to what I grew up on. And those of our viewers that know me know that there were 12 siblings in my family, right? 12.
Wow.
And so when you grow up in a large family, it's different. Just the dynamics of all of those people is different than it would be in a small, concise family like most families have today. So tell us a little bit about your upbringing and how that played into the secrets that you kept and maybe that only were shared now that the book has been written.
Yeah. Yeah, my childhood is just traumatic. I grew up in a family where I grew up in Singapore. And today is highly modernized. But when I was growing up there, we were a British colony. My dad was a functional alcoholic. He can function pretty well, but he is an alcoholic. And we lived in a small little tiny house. And it was my dad, my mom, my dad's mistress, and 7 children. So there are 10 of us in the family. And you can imagine the dynamics of such a living arrangement. My dad also physically abused my mom and 2 other sisters. He has he I think he was maybe bipolar or something, but he would fly into a rage at the slightest thing. So how do I grow up? I think the one word I tell people, I grew up in fear. My childhood, if I remember, I don't remember the joy. I remember some laughter with my mom, but it's always fear, especially when my dad is home, because I feel like I lived in a minefield that I have to step really carefully. And everywhere I step, in case I step on something and cause my dad to explode and beat somebody. So I go inside myself. So I'm a dreamer. I love to dream. I love to read when I was young. So I'll go inside myself and imagine myself in all those little adventures that I read about in the books. So that was my childhood growing up. Um, so that how that does translate into turning into an adult. I was an extreme introvert. I was a people pleaser. I can read people very well with their emotions, with that when they change the slightest emotion, I can pick it up right away. If they're unhappy or they're so so it's like training from young, right? You learn how to read the signs of someone is unhappy or they're displeased with you, especially in the Asian culture. Unfortunately, we hide a lot of our feelings, right? We want to project a good appearance outwardly. So, but I'm really good at all these little cues. So yeah, that was me growing up. And then of course, my mom actually have 8 children. And one of my sisters passed away because she was very young and she had disease, and they were very poor growing up. So they didn't have medical. By the time they get to the hospital, it was too late. She was dehydrated and she died. But I never met her. I'm daughter number 7, so I'm the last one. And the reason why sometimes I think that you don't have to actually be physically abused in childhood, in my case, I wasn't. My dad never beat me, but you can feel the trauma suffer as much of the trauma as someone like my sisters who have been beaten. My dad don't beat me. It's an interesting story. I'm daughter number 7, and my mom had to keep going until she get a son. Poor lady, to carry on the name. So when I was born, then my brother followed me. So I was the kid that brought the brother. So I'm the lucky child. On top of that, my dad is a Taoist. It's kind of a derivative of Buddhism. And he has this little book that I see him read all the time that tells him when is the auspicious day to move, for example. When would be a good day to start a job or whatever. And so he consulted that book when I was born, and the day and time that I was born, according to that almanac, I was the child that would bring the head of the household prosperity. So I was the lucky child. So my dad never beat me. It's not that I'm good. I'm such a good. No, I'm not. I'm kind of just like every other child, right? You misbehave sometimes. But so he never touched me. But from my perspective, I'm not lucky.
Mhm.
Far from it. I feel guilty actually growing up. I thought that if he beats me, maybe he beats my mom less, one time
Mhm.
less. Maybe he beat my sister less. It's distributed to all of us, right? So that didn't help either growing up with that kind of uh thing, right? So that was me growing up. Have all kinds of as a family. Since I'm one of the younger ones, I have more attention than some of the middle sisters, and and when they were struggling, when after I was born, my dad did financially got better, and we were able to buy our own little house instead of renting and sharing a house with somebody else, and so I didn't feel very poor, but my sisters that they all went through. My mom was so focused on helping to put food on the table. I know at one time my dad made $500 a month, supporting 10 people, 9 other people in the family. I don't know how he did it. So we are struggling. We were struggling. And my mom's focus was she sews the factory would drop off like jeans, and she would like sew their collar, their sleeves on, and get 50 cents for every garment she sews. So she's focused on all of that. She didn't have a lot of time for the kids.
You said your father's mistress lived in the house as well. So is that a common thing in an Asian country that long ago?
No,
So what
no,
was the story there? That I can't even imagine what it would have been like, how confusing that would have been for the
yes.
children to see, like, was she considered like your mother or a stepmother, or how did that all play
Yeah,
into your feelings of fear and insecurity and unworthiness, guilt?
right. Yes. We call her auntie. So we know she is the wife. We just never questioned, right? I was born into a family that has 2 wives and a dad and a husband. But we never knew. My dad was so controlling of all of us. We never like going to school. My mom picks us, send us to school, pick us up, come home. We never get to like spend time outside the house with friends or whatever. It was just us. And we lived in a bubble. And my dad is very protective of what we see and what we hear and what we talk about. Like when we go to the movies, he and my mom and his mistress, 3 of them, the adults, will go and watch the movie, My Fair Lady or something, right? Or Sound of Music or something. And they will go watch it. And then they will come back and then they will say, okay, just the children can see. It's a good show.
Right.
And they will buy 7 tickets. And my older sister, they'll give her some money. They drop us at the theater. My older sister will buy 7 little ice cream cones for us each. And we'll go sit there and watch the movie. When the movie is over, we stand up, we walk. My mom is waiting outside to pick us up. So we are highly, highly protective. The reason why I say that, that's not a good thing, because I really did not know that a person would look you in the eye and tell you a lie. I didn't know that. I was so, so, so innocent. And I don't know the facts of life till I was 18. I don't know how babies were made till I was 18 years old. So that's why it's we don't understand the sexual dynamics of a two wives and one husband, right? So when we were older, we always we cannot. This is not very it's common, but not that common in Singapore, in the Asian countries. But in Singapore, it's a little bit more relaxed because people are more modern thinking. It's our family. It's us. It's my dad keeping us controlled in a very controlled environment. So when we were older, when we realized that, I often asked my mom, why is he beating you all the time? It's all this is because of the living arrangements of 2 wives and 1 husband, and they get into this thing. Yeah, so it's very, very unhealthy. And I hated my dad.
Right.
I hated my dad with a vengeance.
Yeah.
Because of what he does to my mom. But
you said that in the book, that you
yes,
hated your dad, which is a strong word. And you also are a Christian, right? Wendy, you're a
yes,
Christian. Your dad was a Taoist, and you're a Christian. But there's something super interesting in the book that happened with your older sister when she decided that she wanted to try out Christianity. What happened?
oh yeah, this was my older sister, and the uh, Youth for Christ, it's an international organization, was in Singapore, and they would reach out to kids in school. They will be there for after school activities. And my sister will always make an excuse she has to go do something in after school. And she would go to this Youth for Christ, and she became a Christian. So on Sundays, she would go to church, but my mom devised this reason. She would ask her to bring me and my other sister, one other sister, the 2 younger girls, with her, and said she's going to take us shopping. So on the pretense of going shopping, she would take us to church, and she would drop us in the Sunday school. So I sing all the songs, but here again is that secret thing. We're all told, don't say anything to anybody. You cannot tell your dad. My mom knows, but don't say it to anybody that you go to church. Don't sing those songs at home. And since I am always in my own head, I don't talk to anybody, even my own family. I don't say a whole lot. I'm a safe bet to bring to church. So that's how I grew up in church. But my dad finds out she was in church, and they would punish her by, I think it wasn't punishing her, was she, until recently I told her she didn't even know. She didn't know the reason why. My dad asked us to go out to the garden to pick up these bricks. We have these bricks that line the garden, the property, little bricks, and take it into the house, to the room. There are like 2 bunk beds. It's a little tiny house. So 2 bunk beds. So 4 of the girls sleep there. I don't sleep there, but 4 of the girls. And would throw it into the middle of the room between the 2 bunk beds. And we would put it nicely on the floor. And he sat there and said, nope, stand at the door and throw it into the middle to make the biggest impact. So the dust was everywhere. But my mom never told my sister why that pile of brick was in the room. And it was in the room for months. But you know what? For so many years, I carried this. When I told my sister this, she was shocked. She didn't know. She said, I don't even remember. Maybe she blocked it out. I don't know. But that was my dad. He does that. And then when she started dating, he will say, okay, 8 o'clock, she's not home. Go and lock the gate. My mom would obediently lock the gate. And then when he goes to sleep, she will sneak out and open the gate. So things like that. And she got punished for going to church. Yeah.
I know it's quite the story, and hearing your story, it gives me goosebumps. You ended up thinking about going to university and then not. What happened? Why didn't you go to university?
Oh, yeah. Because in Singapore, they have one university, English speaking. English is the official language in Singapore. So we are all required to take a second language. And there's a Chinese university as well. So their standards are so high, only the cream of the crop goes there. So I'm not that smart. When I was going to school, I'm not the top 5% or 2% or whatever it is. Um, so for those who cannot qualify for the university in Singapore, they will have the money to go to the US, UK, and Canada. Those are the three countries that we all go to get our degrees. So my dad told me, well, if you really want to go, he can't really afford it. That's the thing about giving false hope is actually a very, very, very dangerous thing. And I'm the recipient of that false hope. So I was like, oh, good. He's going to send me to college. So I applied and I got accepted, which surprised me actually, because I always thought I was stupid. But anyway, when growing up, not now, but and I got accepted. So I was so happy. And they said, okay, you got to send your bank statement to show that you have the money to do it. So I was telling my mom, we don't ask our dad for stuff. We always have the intermediaries. My mom, my dad is here.
Right.
We are here. My mom is
Right.
here. So we go through my mom. And I asked, and I asked, and I asked. And the date keeps creeping up for the deadline to send the information. Fran, I kept that acceptance letter for
Good for you.
years. But before I came to the US, I shredded. I shredded because I said, but you know what? The first chance I get when I was in the US, I went to college with a full-time job. I took night classes and I went to college because learning is my passion. I love to learn. I just love it.
You almost went to university, but your dad didn't follow through on his promises, right? On his promises
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
to help. So instead, you went into banking and you started at the lowest level, but somehow you ended up in corporate America at a job where you get to decide how much money you're going to make and the conditions of employment. Somewhere along the line, you went from being a child in a house that's so traumatic now, and there's got to be some hope. There's got to be some hope in there. So yes, your dad gave you false hope, but what propelled you from this little girl who ended up just crushed because you're not smart enough to go to the universities in Singapore, and yet your dad won't help you go overseas? What did you do?
Yeah, it's I am a woman of faith. I believe in God. So I really believe that God put angels in my life. I now look back, right? We now look back and I could see that God has put angels in my life to help me along the way, all the way. And for some reason, uh, it's just me. I always believe I can figure things out. I always believe that. If I even in corporate, where every time there's a challenge in the corporate in our environment, I said, "Oh, let me think about it. I'll figure it out." And because you have this mindset, you always do. I always do. I come up with some kind of idea. It's not always the most brilliant idea, but we pivot, we change. If it doesn't work this way, let's alter it a little bit. Let's change it that way. So when I was married to an abusive man, and I just one day it's a defining moment that I realized that you can't do this. It's pretty sad that when you grew up in an environment like this, I was born into a family with this dynamic, this one husband, two wives in the same household. It's the most cruel thing to do to a woman, right? But I was born into it, so I don't know any different, right? And we are not allowed to associate with other people. We don't know how other people live. And when I was married to this abusive man, I told myself, can you believe it? I told myself, at least he didn't beat me as bad as my dad beats my mom. Nobody should be subject to that. But I came to a realization that I can't have this. So although I'm introvert, I feel like I'm timid. I'm afraid all the time. But I went into this is I really attribute this to my God. I went into my boss. I've just like had enough. I went into my boss's office one day and I said, if I ever had a chance to move to the U.S., will the bank give me a job? This in itself is a miracle. I wasn't like some big VP or whatever in a bank. And my boss says, yes, yes. And he went on to go and talk to the people in the head office, locate a job for me, help me to apply for a visa. And he did tell me, he says that a lot of people from London wants to go to corporate head office to work. So your chances are very slim. So he's trying to temper my hope, which is nice of him. So I didn't tell a soul in my family that I did that. A month, my visa was approved. And he said, okay, Wendy, I give you a month, 30 days, you got to move. I said, I guess I better tell my family, you know? So I did. That was the reason I came to the US. I know two people in the US, in the entire US, not to talk about Dallas. I moved to Dallas and I know two people in the bank. I came here with two little kids. And I had to settle them in school. My mom came with me for a couple of weeks to get me settled so that, I could watch the kids and stuff. But it was and like I tell myself, I can make it. I'll figure it out. And it's not easy, never easy, but you gotta look at the why. Why am I here? Why do I have to run away? I run away from all the stress, all the cultural stigmatism. I was a woman who was separated from the husband and waiting to be divorced. And my family look at me with such pity in their face. When we go to dinner, after we were married, we still all go back and call at my dad's house on Sunday evening for dinner. And my mom would cook a big feast, and my dad will warn to all my sisters, don't sit with your husbands because Wendy didn't have one.
Oh,
You're going to make her feel bad. So there's always this tension. And my ex-father-in-law loved me very, very much. And he works downtown Singapore, and I worked in downtown Singapore. So when we go to lunch, I sometimes see him on the street. He would come over to me, and at that time I was probably in the 20s, maybe early 30s, and he was in his 50s, right? And he would tear up and apologize and apologize and apologize every time he sees me downtown. I'm so sorry what my son did to you. You know, you must come back and see me. You are my daughter. I don't care what happened. You are this social pressure, and I feel really bad. And for the rest of my day, I'm upset because I see him at lunch. So all this social pressure, my dad telling my sisters how to behave at a dinner, all of that, and every time the phone ring before the weekend, I don't want to answer because somebody maybe my father and ex-father-in-law may be asking me to go back to see them, take the kids or whatever. It was just too much. That's why I think I went and said, I'm going to move. Somehow, I don't know how, but I'm going to move to the US.
So you're coming to more of a multicultural country, a multicultural
Yes.
city, and yet even there you experienced racism, which I'm sure you had never experienced back home because
Yeah.
of the people there. So what happened in
Mm-hmm.
Dallas? What happened with your son?
I don't know why the school got some person from YMCA or some young man to go do things with them like extracurricular, like outside, like maybe PE or something, right? Physical activities outside. And he would make fun of my son and call him chings and all of that. An adult calling a child that. And so he came home, he would tell us, and my current husband is white. So he went to school and he talked to the administrator and said, why do you hire a person like this and call my son a chinks? And they went and searched for my son, and they realized his son is a white man, his son was Chinese. And they did do something about it. They fired him. They fired this man because for a school, can you believe it? A school. Um,
Your second husband's family did not accept you either.
yes, yes. This is like, that's why I said this is not a one incident that the things I do to help myself to get past these types of things is a continuous daily choice to choose. It's not a one time I fix it, I'm done, I'm healed. It's a continuous thing. When I came to the US, I was so focused on my kids. I wasn't thinking about dating or anything like that. But God has another plan, right? And it happened. And when we got kind of my current husband and I got serious about dating, and I told myself, oh, I'm so happy because I have no family here in the US. No family. Um, and I said, oh, then I will have family here. It's so nice. And so the first time we met them, my husband brought them to a buffet. So we were seated and we were talking, and it was quite cordial. We were talking and communicating, and then I thought, oh, not bad. We were talking. And as soon as my husband stood up to go get more food, a second plate of food, I continued talking. And then the two of them looked down at their plate and didn't say anything. And at first, I thought they were old, so they couldn't hear
Mm.
me. So I raised my voice, and they still didn't say anything. And then as soon as my husband comes back, sit down, they looked up and they were talking to him again. That was the first time I said, oh, I wasn't expecting it because I wasn't used to it in my country. I mean, in Singapore, we are multicultural. Every country you know of that has a banking system has a bank, has a branch in Singapore. So we have all multi-racial, skin color, everything. We judge a person by, I don't like, not that I'm so like a saint, I don't like this person because of color, but no, because of something she or he did, right? It's not because of the color of their skin. So that was crazy. And then I was walking into a mall during a lunch break. Ran to the mall to pick up something in Dallas I was crossing into the park my car, and I was crossing into the mall, and this truck came by and stopped, rolled down his window and said, "Go back to your own country." I was like, huh? And then he drove away, of course. I was so crazy. I didn't see all these things. I didn't realize it was racial. I went back and I told this colleague of mine, how did this man who doesn't know me knows that I'm from Singapore, not from the US. And my friends, they're just racist, Wendy. They take it as part of life, and that shouldn't be. So in other words, your the adversity that one faces is multifaceted. It's not just one area. It's just you just have to. I think we just have to roll with it and decide ahead of time how we are going to respond. Not
That's
react, respond.
that's beautiful because once it's in your face, it's like you're shocked, right? Because it's like the shock comes over you because you can't believe that someone actually said or did that thing. So what you just said was you plan ahead of time
Yeah.
for this. And so in your book, you give some very good information about, well, there's stuff about forgiveness too, because in order to move past all of these things that happened, whether it was your father, the mistress and how he raised you, what happened with your ex-husband, what happened with the racism, what happened with your in-laws, what happened in corporate America, you offer some excellent advice, and a lot of it is based on forgiveness and for forgiveness to yourself as well. So, what role did forgiveness have in helping you to move past all of these obstacles that obviously were trying to get in your way to prevent you from becoming who you were always meant to be?
Yeah. Yeah, it's forgiveness is huge, I think. And we all hear that forgiveness hurts us more than it hurts the person that we will not forgive. Because after they hurt you, they move on, but you carry that burden, that hurt, which is so hard to get over. But I think it's just having to you have to first identify what it is and try to understand. I think I mentioned earlier, I hated my father. I really did for many, 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 many years. And he would call me in the US and I would just talk to him because I still have this fear in me. I will talk to him, but he would say something to me because I said a Chinese expression. My dad don't speak good English, so I speak Chinese to him. So I said an expression like just a saying, and he said to me, he said, "Oh, you still remember how to say that, because I'm so Americanized now." So I said, "What's wrong with that?" I would snap back at him because I would do little things like that. But then as I get older and older, and as I get older, I think I mature, right? And I try to think of what was he going through to make him such a person, right? Of all the things, I mean, my mom being abused by her husband, me being abused by my ex-husband, is not unique to us. Many, maybe millions of women, the same thing. But I think at that time, to make your wife live with your mistress, that is the most cruel. I thought that was the most cruel thing. So I try to kind of think through why would he do something like that? Then I trace it back one day, I trace it back to the fact that my grandfather was a general in China, a very high general. So he had four wives. Because at his generation in China at that time, I believe, I've never been to China, but this is why I hear that their wealth is identified how many households they have. So 4 wives, 4 homes, 4 sets of service people, 4 household to maintain. But he was extremely wealthy. He was a general. And he doesn't drink, doesn't smoke, but he has 4 wives. And he speaks English fluently, obviously Mandarin, and then he speaks Japanese fluently. So he was some big dude in China, I guess. And my dad's mom was wife number 1. So what happens if wife number 2, you leave her behind, as long as I give you money for your servants, for your food, for the roof over your head, you should be happy. So he goes on to wife number 2, wife number 3, wife number. So my grandmother was left on her own, and my dad sees that she was probably sad and suffering and all that, heartbroken. And he must have vowed to himself that he will never do that to his wife. But he didn't. He was so focused on, I'm never going to leave my wife for another woman. Oh, let me just take this woman and live with us. Is it right? No. It's screwed up thinking, unfortunately. But that is his world. That is his view. When I saw that, I thought, well, I messed up too. I may be thinking this is the best thing for my children. Maybe according to them, it wasn't, right? From my point of view. So that allowed me to start to kind of open up my heart, to soften a little bit for him. And then once that happens, my mind start to think, oh, my dad really loves me. He did this, 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 this. He did so many things that showed he never did say he loved me. Never. That's kind of cultural, I think. But he did so many, his actions showed that he really loved me. So then the forgiveness comes. But it's not easy, and not everybody needs to be forgiven, really. Some people cannot be forgiven. So we have to be careful. Everybody's situation is different. So, but once I have that, the burden is off. That every time I think of my dad, that hatred, that anger, really is more anger than anything. It's never good for your health. My goodness, I don't think it's good for your soul either to be that way. But that all relax. It really, really free me up. That I now believe that they said you forgive people, you free yourself. That's so true. And you have to go through it to understand it.
You really do. And I think with forgiveness, once you can, once you recognize the truth, right? You know what your dad did. You saw it. You were aware. And then you can look back and say, okay, he did get raised with a father of his own that had 4 wives. He was of the first marriage, right? And that dad left him to go with these other ones. So he was so left behind. He would not do that to you either. He would not leave his children. So even in that, there's an understanding that, my goodness gracious, what would it have been like for him as a child growing up? How horrible, how sad his life must have been growing up. And then there's that understanding where you can say, because he was a small child too at one time. He was a child.
Yes. I think he was 17 or 18 when he put him in a boat, escaped from China to Malaysia.
Right.
And the dad had to also escape China because the communists took over.
Exactly.
And so he had my dad was the only son at that time, and they put him on a boat and escaped to China, to Malaysia he has an uncle or some friend that's there, and he and the dad went to Hong Kong, another boat separate, so they won't, if they catch them together, they kill them, and then their line is lost, right? So they had to do that. And imagine a young man at that age, all by yourself, going to a foreign country to a man you don't know. I don't know how he survived. I mean, yeah,
And so all
yeah,
of those life situations that it only takes introspection, right? To think about
yes,
what must have been like to walk in their shoes, to be in their shoes.
yes,
And then
yes,
forgiveness is so, I think we allow forgiveness to be, right? And then
yes,
once we allow
yes,
forgiveness to be, then God or whoever we believe is our higher power gets a crack, just a little crack in our heart to let light in. And
yes,
also
yes,
we're able to give love more freely. We're able
yes,
to love others more
yes,
freely. So, I
yeah,
mean,
and yeah.
it's beautiful.
And I want
Beautiful.
to also emphasize that when we forgive, we're not forgiving this person for the deed that they did. It was wrong. Absolutely 100% wrong to beat anybody, you know. But I'm not forgiving him for, I'm not saying he's right in beating my mom, but I know now why he has a reason that doesn't make it right. But I'm able to give that forgiveness. Yeah.
And so now you have moved on. In the book, you give other, like you talk about forgiveness, but there's also other things that you talk about in the book to help other people with hope, with moving on, with forgiving themselves. There are people listening right now who need your iron will, who need that strength, who need the hope because they're in their darkest place right now. How do you get out of that darkest place? What are some of the things that you do regularly to keep your soul, your spirit at a place where you won't sink that low again?
Yes. I think the very important thing, the one thing that held me back for way too long in a dark place, is that you have to break the silence. You cannot keep it within yourself. I think the world is a lot more understanding. And sometimes when we are in the dark, we don't really see. We can't see there are many. Once I even at a time, once I open up, the there are so many people out there that are waiting to help you. There are so many kind people as there are mean people. That's what I find. So the first thing is to have the courage to break that silence. And it's not always, I'll tell you, the first time I told somebody this was a visiting colleague from Houston at the time I was in Dallas. And she was so nice. So I thought, well, she opened up to me about certain things. So I just said quietly, I said, yeah, my husband beats me. She screamed at the top of her voice, why did you let him do that? And there were people outside my office. It was like, oh my gosh. That was, I took that extra brave step. And then I shrink back right in. And for years, I never shared with anybody again for many, many years. But so take that risk. It's not the end of the world. You got to shine the light in the dark place because lots of things can happen in the dark place. That my mom always said, don't go out in the middle of the night. You are courting problems,
Yeah.
right? So I think the very first thing is to break that silence. Find somebody, even a therapist. Nowadays, a lot of therapists out there, somebody you can trust. And then if you're struggling in a workplace, that's my most most compassion for people in the workplace because I kept silent for so long. HR can help you. I met so many nice HR people, and I teach HR people how to help people in the company, right? So tell them they are sworn to confidentiality. They cannot share your secrets with anybody. So, except with management, but feel safe that you can do that, especially in this time. The other thing that I thought that really helped me personally, and these are like I mentioned to you earlier, friend, before the show, that this are things that I have done. This is personal experience. This is just an advice. You can take it or leave it. Try it out. If it works, yay. I'm not a professional, medical professional, or anything. These are proven methods that I found to be so helpful to me. And this one in particular helps me the most, and that's compartmentalization. I am able to function at work because the minute I walk into my office, there's a switch. I switch into office mode. And I say, I may have been beaten the night before by my ex-husband. I walk into the office, I turn the switch on, I say, I'm going to focus on work. I will think about this later. I'll deal with this later. And it helps me not just in my mentally, I can focus and don't have that stress. I can focus. It's not easy. I'm not saying these are easy. You have to keep telling yourself in the beginning, you have to keep doing it and doing it and doing it over and over again, 3-4 times in an hour to get yourself, nope, I'm going to think about it later. Nope. When it comes in, nope, I'm going to think about it later. I'll park it here. I'll think about what to do later. And in a moment, sometimes just somebody at a loud voice say something, you bring it right back. No, I'm not going to think about this. I have to work. I have to get my work done. Because I was single mom, I was the sole breadwinner for bringing up my 2 kids for so many years. My focus was keeping my job. Now, if I behave like like, oh, I'm crying all the time, who's going to tolerate it, right? So I have to get the courage to say, no, I'm not going to think about it. Then I was able, that do 2 things for me. It helps me reduce my stress during the day about what happened the night before, a week ago, whatever it may be, or that phone call that came that I was afraid to answer, that stress helps me, my mental, to calm down, not as so stressed. Second thing, it allows me to focus on my work. And guess what it resulted in? That's why I have a lot of successes in the corporate world, because I was able to focus on my work. So that switch is not easy. It's kind of rusty at first, but you got to keep the oil on, and then it gets easier and easier. And guess what? My thing is, when I'm driving home, that's when I turn back the switch to my normal self. I think about all these. Tears may come, but I try not to, because when you get home, you see, the kids can see. But I can try to at least start to address it. Oh, next time I'm going to do this, or I can tell this, or whatever. And then when I get home, I switch again. That's my family mode, kids time. So sometimes my son was abused by my ex-husband as well. So he had some issues in school, and they put him in a special program for a couple of years to get him out of. He was exhibiting the behavior of an abused child. That's what the school identified. So I, along with him, was going to therapy kind of. They were teaching me how to respond to his certain behaviors. So I was always told them, I'm very strong. I don't cry in front of them. I don't do this. I don't do that. The therapist said, no, feel free. They need to see that you're hurting. Otherwise, they think, oh, there's nothing wrong. They're learning that this kind of bad behavior from a man treating a woman like this is not so bad. Look at her. Nothing didn't affect her. So I do learn, that's why learning is so important, that you keep learning all of these things. And when I get home, I switch again and then play with the kids. When they're in bed, switch off. That's when the time I really deal with it. And it's just important to say, compartmentalization, you can push it off to later, push it off to later, but you always have to come back and address it. You have to address it internally. You don't have to go confront somebody because it's dangerous sometimes, right? You confront somebody, get maybe smashed to death, but you have to address it internally and give yourself the moment to grieve, to not be kind to yourself, I should say, right? And say, no, it wasn't my fault that this happened, right? Till today, I review my goals every single day. Every morning when I sit down before I start work, I review my core values. And at the end of my core values, at the end of it, I do say that you are not broken. You don't need to be fixed. It's over 50 years, friend. I still have to remind myself because guess what? It comes back in the blink of an eye. It's not going to be fixed. One time, fix it all. It's repetitive, repetitive. You have to remind yourself. So, those are some of the things that I did. Gratitude is a big one. I wake up every morning, the first thing before my feet hits the ground from the bed, I said, thank you. Thank you for what I have today, where I am today. Thank you. Because that sets your mind to the right way, right? You don't think that, oh, poor me, I didn't get that job. My friend didn't call me. They didn't invite me to the house for dinner. What you don't start the day thinking like that. You spiral down to more and more bad things. Uh, Lately, I think I added one that's not in the book that I found very useful. One of the other things after I said my gratitude, I say thank you. And then I give myself a smile. I say, you know what? Something good is going to happen to or for me today. I just did this like 6 months ago. And I find it so, I get so tickled when something actually good happened that day. And really, it's just it just makes your day so much more interesting and more positive. I
And
mean,
you
life
start
is hard enough.
and you start to watch for it too,
Yes,
right?
yes,
I mean, something
yes.
good and
Mm-hmm,
fun is going to happen to
mm-hmm.
me today. You're on the lookout for it. You're not looking for the bad. You're looking
Yes.
for this fun and interesting and really good thing. So that's
Mm-hmm.
actually a mind shift as well. I love that.
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So we're
yes.
almost at the end of our show. And
Okay.
what I like to do, Wendy, is at the end of the show, I always ask my guest, what's your last message of hope for our viewers?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I want everyone listening to this podcast to know that you are stronger than you think. As you weather through the storms of your life, I think you see that you possess a strength far greater than you've ever imagined. I never imagined myself to be such a strong person, but now I know I am. So, in moments of doubt, when you're unsure, your whole, I, or you're just struggling, and you feel like you're in the dark and you can't see the light. I want to all of you to hold tightly to the faith, whatever form that is that guides you. And remember, the darkest of nights often lead to the brightest mornings. So hang in there, embrace your journey with courage, for within you lies the invisible spirit capable of overcoming any challenge. That spirit is your iron will. So, friend, and all of you listeners, with all my heart, I wish you the very best. And thank you for taking the time to listen to me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Wendy. That's a beautiful way to end our show. How can we find your book? Where can we find your book? And you have a website as well, and you're on social media. Where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on Wendy C. Wilson. If you put the C as the initial, cwilson.com. And then once you get there, you'll see my blog. I have a weekly blog. And then you can find me in LinkedIn as well. And my Instagram is Wendy Wilson US, the number 7. So there I have a daily post on resilience, leadership, overcoming challenges. All of that is there. And you learn, especially in my blog posts, they have the more detail. If you don't have time, the Instagram is good for a little bite-sized wisdom. And then the LinkedIn is a shorter version of my blog. The blog has sometimes very detailed frameworks on how you can deal with all these. And of course, my book is on Amazon, linked. I think you can find it on Barnes and Noble, Audible. I have an audiobook as well. And if you buy the book, you can go in and do a free assessment on my website. It's free to see where you are, and then you can take as many time as you want. After you practice some of the tips that I do, you go back and take it again. And I have a free companion workbook too for your listeners if they want to check that out. Just go to my website and you will see.
Perfect.
Go to my and you can scroll down. You'll see the free assessment and the free workbook. You can download it and do that.
Thank you so much for joining me, Wendy. It's been a pleasure to listen to you. It's not always easy to hear those kinds of stories, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you've had your own trauma, but it's always good to know that you're not alone and to hear how other people have dealt with that trauma and moved on in life to be very successful in a new marriage, with their children, in a new life, a new understanding of others as well. So thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that's joined us today. If you liked what you saw, please subscribe. It'll help myself to spread hope. It'll help Wendy to get her word out. And it's just so good for the soul to hear hope. And so we will see you all soon. Thank you again, Wendy. It was lovely to meet you. God bless.
Bye.
This podcast and Inspired Healing Hypnotherapy do not provide medical advice. The information included here is not limited to text, graphics, images, or other material contained, and are for informational purposes only. No material in this podcast is intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment, and before undertaking a new healthcare regimen. And never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this site.